Today we're talking fear and the pros and cons of it in ourselves, in our lives and in our businesses. You see, there are many times in life where we're likely to face situations that perhaps we haven't faced before. We've faced the unknown, and as a result, as businesses, as business owners, as people, we don't tend to like change that much. We tend to be rather cautious of change, and as a result it can often trigger this fear response, the fear of the unknown. Now don't get me wrong, in business owners there are many types of fear that we may face. I might put them into 3 categories to be able to help us understand them just a little bit more. First of all, the fear of the unknown, being presented with something perhaps the first time or in a manner that we've not had to deal with before, and the uncertainty as to how best to be able to handle this. Certainly at the time of recording this, we are still going through the COVID pandemic in 2020, and as a result there are many people right now who are fearful about what the future may hold, either within their business and the survival of it, or just in life with regards to being presented with a worldwide pandemic of a virus that is killing so many people. So there's lots to be fearful of right now, and the majority of people who face that are fearful of the unknown, of the uncertainty as to what could happen as a result. But there are other 2 common fears in business also. And another one that many business owners face is a fear of failure, a fear of getting it wrong, a fear of not knowing what to do, being presented with something that's uncertain, an uncertain situation, something that we've not handled before, and making the wrong decision. Making a decision that takes us further away from that we've achieved already, that puts us on the back foot, that takes us back to a place prior to where we've already received. It's not enabling us to be able to move us and our business forward towards the business plan that we have, and therefore this fear of not being able to move forward, this fear of whatever it is that I do and the impact it may have possibly to be able to take us backwards, prevents us from doing what's necessary. I'll come back to that in a second, because the third and possibly surprising fear that many business owners have from times to time is a fear of success. Now, don't get me wrong, we're all working towards being able to try and achieve something here, but there are many people who, when it starts to happen, when this success starts to occur, when all of the hard work that we've put in is starting to pay off, and we're starting to see the fruits of our labours, as they say, as the sales starts to come in some quantity, when it starts to take us beyond a level of comfortability, the fear of what this might then become, the fear of having to manage a huge big business when that wasn't what I'd first anticipated, or what that might look like, or having to take on lots of staff or lots of product, or the fear of having to pay a large amount out in salaries. There are many considerations as to what might lead us to have some form of fear. And don't get me wrong, primarily fear is a good thing. It's a primal instinct that we have been born with to try and protect us from danger. And therefore, when something happens and our body starts to react by going into a state of fear, this is a natural occurrence. This is the body's natural state when it's being presented with something that it's uncertain of, as a matter of survival. I'm sure that you've all have come across the expression fight or flight, being able to stand and be ready to protect, or to simply leg it and protect by living to fight another day. And certainly in our past, in our ancient past, we can see many occurrences of where that might be so. Where caveman walks round corner and finds grizzly bear, and suddenly decides, do you know what? I haven't got a sharpened spear and a good vantage point. It's far better to leg it and hope that he doesn't catch up. So the fight or flight mechanism that we're all born with is a natural phenomenon, a natural primitive instinct to be able to protect us from perceived danger. But there's another aspect to fear as well. You see, there's a difference between fear and danger. We should never be fearful of fire unless we put a hand in the fire. Now we can be fearful of getting burnt because it's a dangerous situation. The grizzly bear is a dangerous situation, but ironically there's no point going to the zoo and getting frightened of grizzly bear behind enclosure. The danger's been removed, and yet it may be that some people are still fearful. Oh, but what if he gets out? What if he breaks the glass? What if he does this? What if he does... The perception of danger is just as real for some people as danger itself. And this is where a positive impact, the body's natural response, now starts to work against us and creates a negative impact, where fear no longer serves us well, where it takes a genuine dangerous situation and then transforms it in our minds as to the what-ifs. And you've got people that are fearful of spiders, fearful of the dark, fearful of going upstairs, fearful of outdoor spaces. You've got people that are fearful of a whole rack of different things based on perception of danger as opposed to real danger. Now, the next thing I want to quickly share with you, and why this is so important to you as a business owner, is to understand that there are two physical things that are happening within the body whenever we face this thing, fear. First of all, there's a universal biochemical response if the body goes into this state of fight or flight. It's going to automatically release a whole series of chemicals into the bloodstream in order for us to think faster, in order for us to be able to react faster if we need to either fight or flight. There's a chemical endorphin imbalance as the body races to try and determine what's the right things to do right now. But then there's a very, very personal, emotional response that happens also. And this is where it becomes quite interesting and clever. You see, some of the chemicals that the body releases during that fight or flight biochemical response are also the same type of chemicals that are released when we are happy and ecstatic and having fun. And therefore some people get so attracted and attached to that chemical that causes happiness and excitement that we create this link, this biometric electronic impulse link between those chemicals that are being released and fear. And these are people like base jumpers or skydivers or free fall climbers, people that are continually pushing the elements, pushing the boundaries of what we are capable of doing, trying to be able to get that endorphin fix from the chemical balance that is released during a period of fear. Now, what's this got to do with you and with business? Well, for that, I want to quickly share with you the fact that it's good to be exposed to fear. It's good to be exposed to things that we are uncertain about in order that we can start pushing the envelope and moving from a place of comfort and safety and pushing the boundaries and the envelopes towards new horizons. There's a lovely quote, I can't for the life of me remember as to who first said it, but it's simply this: everything that you ever wanted is on the other side of fear. And yet it's fear that often holds us back from making the right decisions, making the big enough decisions to be able to implement, to be able to work through that fear, either the fear of the unknown or the fear of success or the fear of failure, to work through that fear to get to everything that you've ever wanted. So it's important for us to understand as to what fear is in order that we can now address it, that we can now stand up to it, that we can now challenge it and determine, is this fear genuine? Is it because there is a real danger to me? And then assess as to what needs to happen in order to try and mitigate the risk of danger. Or is it psychological, that we've created this perception of danger in order to be able to formulate this bubble of safety that then prevents us from making the big enough decisions that have the big enough impact that drive us and our business and our success forward. And it's about that I need to be able to help you with. You see, there are many people out there who've got these great, fabulous plans about what they would like to achieve within their business. And yet when you ask them as to how they're going to do that, they haven't really got that much of a clue. They're uncertain as to what are the things that they need to do in order to be able to achieve the level of success to which they talk about so passionately as to what they want to receive, what they want to attain. And for that, you'll have noticed that we've already got a video out called Why It's Important to Have a Business Plan and how to be able to start your business plan. It's hugely important to be able to go out there and establish as to what is your BFAG. We've also got a video on that. But what is your BFAG, your big, fat, hairy, audacious goal? And therefore, what are you working towards? What are the milestones that we're going to try and hit in order to be able to make that big leap from where you are now to exactly where it is that you want to be in the future? And then once we've got that, once we've got this mapped out and identified as to what it is that you're wanting to achieve, now we can look at some of the decisions that need to be made in order to be able to achieve that. And interestingly enough, decisions that come with big impact often cause fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of risk, of failure, or of success. Now, this brings me back to two stories. First of all, I'm going to share one about my first business and when we tendered for a large contract. And yet, if I won this contract, it automatically meant that my salary bill was going to increase by 125% the day that we won the contract. Now, at the time, the salary bill was about £10,000 or £11,000 a month. And once we'd won this contract, I was going to have to foot a salary bill of about £27,500, nearly £28,000 a month. And at the time, the business wasn't generating sufficient to be able to pay a £28,000 salary bill. It would have been doing so once we'd won this contract and started to be paid for it by the client and this and the other. But the interim between winning the contract, taking on the staff to be able to train them up and prepare them ready for start of contract, starting the contract, delivering the contents to the client, and subsequently getting paid once the invoice has been settled, that was a hefty decision. There was probably about £100,000 worth of salary outgoings before we were going to start to see any form of income. Now that's a big decision and something that we could have been quite fearful of doing. It could have been sufficient that I said, do you know what? I haven't got the means to be able to make those sort of decisions. Those financial implications are too big for me. We potentially won't bid for said contract. And yet for that, I was able to dig deep inside myself. And this is where the second story starts, about how to face fear. You see, for most of you, you're already aware that I'm a former soldier in the British Army. I'm a veteran of the British Army, having served for just over 12 and a half years in uniform for Queen and country. And part of that time was spent on operational commitments in theatres of war around the world. And this particular story comes from one of those in Bosnia in 1996. I was a combat medic, I was a field medic, assigned to an infantry regiment responsible for marking out and protecting a certain geographical area just to the west of Gornji Vakuf, overlooking Sarajevo. And we were on a foot patrol one Tuesday afternoon out being able to ensure that the area was being protected. Now, all of the intelligence that we'd received suggested that this was a decimated area, that there was nobody left, and that we were simply ensuring that the enemy weren't coming towards and trying to set up booby traps prior to us being able to have a stronger presence in the area. And this was simply a patrol to ensure that that intelligence was still good, was still up to date. So we were out there, we were all wearing body armour and Kevlar helmets and had rifles ready. But to be honest with you, we weren't anticipating what we subsequently found that afternoon. Because as we turned the corner into a street, what we were faced with is about 40 to 45 teenagers, all heavily armed with AK-47s, with grenades, playing football in the street. The whole town or little hamlet or village that we were in should have been completely empty and quiet. We weren't anticipating being able to bump into another soul that day, and like I say, we were out there trying to protect and ensure that the enemy hadn't advanced and was trying to set up shop, as it were. But what we hadn't envisaged that we were going to bump into a series of teenage kids, probably from the age of about 12 or 13 through to about 18, 19, all quite heavily armed, significantly outgunned by the patrol that we were at the time. And as we turned the corner, there was almost this sudden shock that said, they're not supposed to be there. And as we turned the corner, they stopped playing football and looked across and went, we weren't anticipating the army being here. And there was this moment of complete fear and panic in both sides as we stood and faced each other, as if to say, now what do we do? Now, I'm not going to give the game away. If you want us to learn more, you'll have to ask me when we speak. But all I can say is that was in 1996, and at the time of recording this in 2000, I'm still here. And ironically, so is everybody else from that section, and so is everybody else from that football team. There was a happy ever after, even though at the time it was exceptionally cautious and quite fearful. There was a whole thing of racked through my brains of all of the different potential scenarios that could have happened, that went through in a split second of all of the things that might have happened, but didn't. The simple fact is that I'm here, and so is the section that we were operating with that day, and so are they. And I'm sure that there are many people involved in this, both the section of people that I was with and the footballers from Bosnia, who've probably told that story a million times over with regards to how we all felt in that split second where we were faced with fear and how we overcame it. And it's times like that, and times like I explained when I'm signing this contract and all of a sudden giving consideration to the fact that I'm actually signing to say that I'm going to foot the salary bill of a six-figure salary before we've even started to generate any money, that I can look back and say, do you know what? I've faced fear before. I've faced fear of a lot more significance than the fear I face right now. And I've got through it. I've been able to find the resolve to be able to do the right thing. So far, in my 47 years on this planet, I've got by. I've been able to achieve. I've been able to do the right thing. I've been able to trust my gut and my logic. I've been able to analyse and identify that while some of the things haven't gone the way that I anticipated they would, I'm still here and able to tell the tale. And as a result of that, it gives me a little bit more confidence to say, do you know what? I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to dip my toe and go forward. However, it's more than that. You see, the problem with dipping your toe is the fact that you're already cautious about the outcome. You're already starting to say, I'm going to give it a go, but I don't really trust myself. And that's not the way to face fear. I almost can guarantee that the outcome that we had in that football episode in 1996 would not have gone the way it did if either side had shown fear. although we were exceptionally fearful, I think the reason why we are all successfully out of that situation and able to talk about it is the fact that we were able to do what was required and not show fear, to do it with confidence, to be able to do it competently and confidently, knowing that this was the right outcome for both sides. There's a lovely expression that I remember Will Smith once saying on an interview, and he said, "Don't ever, ever, ever have a plan B. For the moment you even consider one, it means that you've already not fully committed to plan A." So when it comes to making a decision, it's not about doing it and then treading cautiously. It's about making the right decision for you and your business and then applying yourself 100% to that outcome. And so not giving considerations to any other outcome that might trigger in your mind other than the one that you are working towards, and go for it. 100% application that there is no plan B. We're going to burn the bridges because we're not going home. This is a one-way traffic towards success. I hope that's helped today. Be able to understand that we all face fear from time to time. Fear is a natural phenomenon for when we are faced with things that we're uncertain about. The fear of the unknown is within us all. Fear of failure, fear of success are two sides of the same coin. And yet the most dangerous thing we can do is to face it and do nothing. To actually just simply retract and say, do you know what, I can't make the decision, and therefore I'm going to withhold, I'm not going to commit. Because ironically, every time that we do that, we feed the bank that says next time take the same response. And that will never move you or your business forward. We've got to be willing to be able to take the risk. We've got to be willing to be able to minimise the risk. We're going to mitigate the risk by trying to do everything we possibly can to reduce the risk of either uncertainty or failure. But the simple fact is we have to go back to that first quote I shared in today's video. Everything that you ever want is on the other side of fear. Hope that helps. Would love to be able to hear your comments, so don't forget to be able to drop a comment below. And I look forward to being able to speak real soon. Take care. That's Jay Allen from My True North.